The battle was over, or so they thought. Godzilla rises once more, unstoppable, unrelenting. The final stand begins, one last desperate gamble to bring the beast down. A lone pilot, a ticking bomb, and a city on the brink of annihilation. Will Koichi's sacrifice be enough? Or is this just the beginning of something far worse? Welcome to Rewind and Review. If you love epic movie recaps, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown. Now, let's dive into the explosive film of Godzilla -1. World War II is nearing its end. A fighter jet plane comes to land on Odo Island. Inside, Koichi Shikishima, a kamikaze pilot, barely lands at a remote base on Odo Island. He's alive, but his fellow soldiers view his survival with suspicion. Koichi ponders, thinking about his mistakes and fears, but this sets him up to be bold and fearless later on. Before tensions can escalate, the ground trembles. A deep, guttural roar cuts through the night. Floodlights flicker on, revealing a massive shape emerging from the jungle. Godzilla. The monster's tail smashes into a watchtower, sending debris and soldiers flying. Chaos erupts as the men scramble for weapons. Koichi, still inside his plane, grips the controls. His instincts scream for action, but fear paralyzes him. Outside, soldiers unleash a hail of bullets and artillery. But it's useless. Godzilla is unstoppable. Godzilla rampages through the base, crushing everything in his path. Buildings crumble beneath his massive weight. Soldiers flee in terror, but there is no escape. With every step, the base is reduced to rubble. Explosions erupt as fuel depots ignite. The once busy outpost becomes a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered bodies. The destruction is total. Morning breaks over smoldering ruins. Koichi, miraculously alive, crawls from the wreckage. Around him, the lifeless bodies of his comrades paint a grim picture. The weight of survival sinks in as he stares at the devastation left behind. After barely surviving Godzilla's onslaught on Odo Island, Koichi finds himself on a transport ship heading back to mainland Japan. The atmosphere is somber. Other survivors sit in silence, haunted by what they've witnessed. The war is over, but for them, the nightmare has just begun. The transport docks in Tokyo, revealing a shattered city. Bombed-out buildings and starving civilians paint a grim picture of post-war Japan. Koichi makes his way through the ruins, finally arriving at his family home, only to find it destroyed. His parents are gone, casualties of war. The weight of loss sinks in. He is truly alone. He seeks out an old acquaintance, Sumiko, who offers him a place to stay. She introduces him to Noriko, a woman caring for an orphaned child. Despite his guilt, Koichi starts to form a bond with them, finding a glimmer of hope in their resilience. As he tries to rebuild his life, Koichi wrestles with his past. He failed to act against Godzilla, and now he struggles with feelings of cowardice. He picks up work repairing ships, but nightmares haunt him, reminding him that the monster is still out there. Koichi's journey is far from over, and with Godzilla still lurking, his past will soon come crashing back. Koichi and his crew are on a routine patrol, scanning the waters. The mood is light, banter among the sailors keeps spirits up. The ocean stretches endlessly before them, calm yet hiding dangers beneath the surface. But then a strange vibration ripples through the ship. The radio crackles with interference. The ocean, once steady, begins to churn. Without warning, a massive shape emerges in the distance. A monstrous dorsal fin slices through the waves. The crew goes silent. Godzilla. Panic sets in as the monster moves toward them, cutting through the water with terrifying speed. Koichi grips the railing, frozen between fear and instinct. The captain shouts orders, full speed ahead, evasive maneuvers. The engines roar, but it's too late. Amid the chaos, Koichi makes a choice. He leaps onto the mounted gun, gripping the controls. With a deep breath, he opens fire. The rounds hammer into Godzilla's hide, but they do nothing. The bullets bounce off, barely scratching the surface. Godzilla lets out a deafening roar and surges forward, his massive tail sending another wave that nearly capsizes the boat. Just when all seems lost, another naval vessel speeds onto the scene. Over the radio, they confirm their attack. Mortars launch, exploding around Godzilla, briefly slowing him down. Godzilla's eyes lock onto the new target. With terrifying speed, he lunges. His tail smashes into the side of the naval ship, tearing through metal. Another strike follows, ripping the vessel apart. Flames and debris scatter across the sea. Koichi's boat is caught in the chaos. After unleashing devastation, Godzilla stands ominously against the stormy horizon, and he lets out one final earth-shaking roar. Then, without warning, he turns and slips beneath the waves, disappearing into the abyss. Koichi slowly regains consciousness in a dimly lit hospital room. His body aches, bandaged from injuries sustained during the attack. Confused and disoriented, he struggles to sit up. His friends enter the room, relief and concern etched on their faces. They gather around him, sharing stories of survival and offering reassurance. The sea is eerily calm and the patrol crew scan the waters. The ship's sonar pings, something enormous is lurking beneath them. Before they can react, the ocean swells unnaturally. A massive shadow moves below the surface. Then, with a deafening roar, Godzilla bursts forth, sending shockwaves across the water. His jagged dorsal plates glow ominously, illuminating the terrified faces of the crew. Radio operators frantically send warnings to the mainland. But it's too late. Godzilla has his sights set on Tokyo. The ground fractures, debris rains from above, and cars flip like toys. The fear is tangible. Tokyo is becoming a war zone. A crowded train speeds along the tracks, desperate to escape the destruction. Suddenly, the train screeches to a halt. Passengers glance around nervously, gripping their seats. The train car windows shake as Godzilla's foot crashes down nearby, sending tremors through the ground. Without warning, Godzilla lowers his massive jaws and clamps onto the train, lifting it from the tracks. Metal groans under his grip as carriages dangle from his mouth like a child's toy. Inside, Koichi's close friend clings to a hanging rail, her knuckles white with fear. The carriage tilts sharply and she loses her grip. She screams as she plummets, crashing through a broken window and tumbling into the raging waters below. On top of a crumbling high-rise, a team of frantic reporters broadcast the destruction. Suddenly, the ground shudders. The cameraman loses his footing. Then, boom! Godzilla's massive form smashes through the lower floors. The rooftop tilts violently. Military tanks roll into position. Their turrets adjust, locking onto the massive beast. Orders crackle through radio channels. Fire at will! Explosions rock the air as mortar rounds streak towards Godzilla. The blasts engulf him in fire and smoke. For a moment, there's silence. Then the dust settles. A deep hum vibrates through the battlefield. Godzilla's dorsal plates begin to glow, pulsing with raw energy. The temperature rises. Soldiers stare in horror as the beast lowers his head, his mouth splitting open. A searing beam of atomic fire erupts from his jaws, sweeping through the city like a scythe. Entire blocks are incinerated. The tanks are reduced to molten scrap. The sky itself glows red as the attack continues. Amid the devastation, Koichi stumbles through the ruins, coughing from the thick smoke. He shields his face as embers rain from the sky. The city he once knew is gone, replaced by fire and ash. The once thriving city of Tokyo is now a graveyard of rubble and ash. Streets are littered with debris, and fires still smolder among collapsed buildings. Survivors wander in a daze, searching for missing loved ones, while emergency workers dig through ruins, hoping to find any sign of life. Days later, the city gathers to mourn. At a solemn funeral, incense burns as families bid farewell to their lost loved ones. Among them, Koichi sits in silence, staring at the flickering candles. His mind is clouded, trapped in the memory of that fateful night. Could he have saved her? Could he have done more? At a clandestine military meeting, Dr. Tanaka steps forward with a daring plan. Destroying Godzilla by conventional means is impossible, but what if they could use physics against him? The proposal: lure Godzilla into the ocean, sink him deep below the surface, and then force him to rise rapidly. The sudden change in pressure would cause catastrophic decompression, potentially killing him from within. To explain the concept, Dr. Tanaka uses a demonstration with a water tank. He places a weighted model inside, submerging it to the bottom. Then, with a quick release, he allows it to rise rapidly. The model fractures under the pressure difference, illustrating what would happen to Godzilla. The room is tense as the officers and scientists exchange glances. This might actually work. To execute the plan, the team develops a massive inflatable rig designed to attach to Godzilla. Once he's lured into the designated zone, high-powered explosives will be used to force him deeper into the ocean. At the right moment, the rig will inflate rapidly, dragging him to the surface in a violent descent, triggering the decompression effect. It's a risky, unprecedented strategy, but it's their best shot. Koichi, still consumed by grief, volunteers without hesitation. He wants revenge. In preparation, Koichi is taken to an old warehouse where a disused fighter plane sits covered in dust. The aircraft is out of service, its exterior worn from years of neglect. Running his hands along the fuselage, Koichi realizes that this could be the key to executing their plan. However, the plane needs major repairs to be flightworthy. Without hesitation, he suggests bringing in his old friend Tachibana, one of the best mechanics he knows. If anyone can restore this plane in time, it's him. Koichi begins searching for Tachibana at the postal department, hoping to track down his whereabouts. Despite his inquiries, the responses are vague. Tachibana has been off the grid for a long time. Desperate, Koichi resorts to a drastic measure. He writes and sends out letters falsely accusing Tachibana of being responsible for the Otto massacre, knowing this will draw him out of hiding. The plan works. One evening, as Koichi walks through a back alley, he is suddenly struck across the head. He collapses to the ground, his vision blurring. When he regains focus, Tachibana stands over him fuming. "What the hell were you thinking?" he growls. They argue. Tachibana, enraged by the accusations, demands an explanation. Koichi, desperate, explains that he had no other choice. He needs Tachibana's help to service the fighter plane for a mission to take down Godzilla. The engineer scoffs at the idea, unwilling to be dragged into another battle. But Koichi, filled with determination, pleads with him, telling him that the fate of the city depends on this mission. After a long silence, Tachibana sighs. "This is suicide," he mutters. But deep down, he knows he can't turn his back on this fight. The next day, he shows up at the warehouse, inspecting the plane with a knowing eye. Tachibana stands amazed that such a plane still exists, but there's a hint of a smirk. "Let's get to work." The military is in full motion, gearing up for what could be humanity's last stand. Engineers work tirelessly, assembling the massive inflatable rig that will be used to sink Godzilla into the ocean. Tanks, ships, and aircraft are deployed to key locations, while officers meticulously review the operation's final details. The tension in the command center is thick as strategists pore over maps, refining their tactics. A radio broadcast echoes through the base, informing the public to evacuate coastal areas. Soldiers load ammunition, and the hum of engines fills the air. Everyone knows the stakes. This is their one and only shot to end the nightmare. In the war room, the final battle strategy is reviewed. The plan is precise, leaving no room for error. Every team has its assignment, from naval forces luring Godzilla into position to the airstrike teams prepared to execute the decompression attack. Officers issue last-minute orders, reinforcing the need for precision and coordination. On the ground, personnel move swiftly, carrying supplies, fueling aircraft, and running final diagnostics. Emergency evacuation routes are confirmed for civilians still within range of the impending battle. The entire operation is running on a tight schedule, with no room for delays. Koichi, aware of the dangers ahead, takes a moment to gather himself before the battle. He observes the hurried movements of the military personnel around him, their expressions filled with urgency and determination. He focuses on his own role, knowing that his actions could determine the mission's success or failure. As the time approaches, Koichi checks over the restored fighter plane, ensuring that every system is in working order. The aircraft, once a relic of the past, now stands as one of humanity's last hopes. The mechanics and engineers finalize their adjustments, each bolt and wire checked meticulously to prevent failure during the mission. As tension falls over the ocean, the fleet advances toward its designated location. Warships, destroyers, and submarines align in formation, their weapons primed and ready. The massive inflatable rig designed to sink Godzilla is in position. Tension hangs heavy in the air as every soldier on board knows what's at stake. Radio communications are buzzing as last-minute orders are given. Crews make final checks on torpedoes, depth charges, and artillery. The operation is a coordinated effort between land, sea, and air forces, all working toward a single goal: eliminating the threat that has plagued Japan. As the fleet continues its assault, Koichi boards his fighter plane, the engine roaring to life. The deck crew signals the all clear, and with a sharp pull of the throttle, he launches into the sky. Meanwhile, on land, Tokyo descends into chaos. Sirens wail as people flee for their lives. Godzilla steps onto shore, each footfall sending shockwaves through the ground. Buildings crumble under his immense weight. Panic grips the city as people desperately try to evacuate. He steadies himself, focusing on his mission. Koichi makes multiple passes, attacking Godzilla with everything his plane has. He strafes the monster with his mounted machine gun, bullets peppering its thick hide. The rounds spark against Godzilla's scales. Godzilla begins his slow march back to the water. His massive frame casts a shadow over the devastation, his body scorched and battered from the relentless attacks. Out at sea, the naval fleet awaits, engines rumbling as battleships and destroyers align for a final confrontation. Their cannons are locked, torpedoes primed, and every remaining weapon aimed at the behemoth. Communication channels crackle with tension. Orders are given. If Godzilla reaches open water, he will disappear, only to strike again when least expected. In one terrifying moment, Godzilla unleashes his atomic breath, a blinding beam of energy that cuts through the ocean and slams into one of the largest ships. The impact is instantaneous. Metal melts, flames burst through the decks. The reinforced containers, armed with high-pressure explosives, are lined up at the stern of the ships. The order is given. Mechanized launch systems push the containers off the edge, sending them plummeting into the sea. As they descend, they activate, sinking rapidly into the depths. As the containers vanish beneath the waves, the fleet launches a relentless assault. Cannons thunder, torpedoes streak through the water, and missiles rain down from above. Explosions churn the ocean's surface into chaos. Godzilla, caught amidst the onslaught, roars in fury, his massive frame illuminated by fire and destruction. Through the smoke and debris, Godzilla retaliates. His dorsal plates flash ominously as he prepares to counterattack. The battle has reached its breaking point. Will the fleet's plan succeed, or is another disaster imminent? The naval fleet executes the final stage of their plan. Explosive-laden containers have been positioned strategically around Godzilla. On command, depth charges detonate, triggering massive underwater shockwaves. The force disorients the monster, and the surrounding vessels unleash a coordinated barrage. The relentless attack takes its toll. Godzilla, roaring in defiance, thrashes violently, but the weight of destruction forces him downward. Before anyone can react, Godzilla's glowing dorsal plates pierce the surface. With an earth-shaking roar, he surges upward, his monstrous form rising in defiance. The battle is far from over. The naval fleet watches in horror as Godzilla rises from the ocean, his dorsal plates glowing ominously. Just as all seems lost, a distant roar of an engine cuts through the chaos. Koichi appears in his fighter plane, speeding straight toward Godzilla. With no hesitation, he steers directly into the beast's gaping jaws, a bomb strapped to his aircraft. The fleet holds its breath as the plane disappears into Godzilla's maw. A blinding flash erupts as the bomb detonates inside Godzilla's mouth. The force is immense, sending shockwaves through the air and sea. The monster lets out one last, deafening roar before sinking beneath the waves. The battle is finally over, but at what cost? Silence hangs over the fleet as they scan the skies. Did Koichi make it out? His friends fear the worst. Then a faint shape emerges, a parachute drifting gently down. Relief washes over them as they realize Koichi ejected just in time. He's battered and exhausted but alive. As Koichi lands in the sea, the fleet stands in solemn salute. Godzilla vanishes beneath the waves, The ocean reclaims its terror, leaving behind an eerie calm. With the battle over, the fleet returns to the docks, where they are greeted by cheering crowds. Soldiers, sailors, and civilians alike celebrate the hard-fought victory, congratulating the brave men and women who risked everything to protect Japan. Deep below, Godzilla continues sinking, fading into the abyss. What a ride! Godzilla -1 delivered heart-pounding action and won Best Visual Effects in 2024, and you can watch it now on Netflix. But this is just the beginning. More epic recaps are coming your way, so hit subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the next Rewind and Review.